Welcome back to Film Snob HQ. Our road to Avengers Doomsday is coming to a close. Make no mistake, we've still got a little while to go, but we are in the fifth phase of the MCU, the sixth era of Marvel films, and the latest one, the phase six, or slash the seventh era, has only just begun. So we're getting very, very close. We've still got a few projects, but I think there's less than 20 to go now. So we are getting closer and closer to the end. Phase 5 began in my last video to, I would say, a warm start, not a hot start, but Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, a totally fine film that just, I think, couldn't quite live up to expectations and maybe didn't deliver the message around the villain that we wanted. But we are in with an absolute banger now. This is a flick that I loved at the time, but I found it very, very traumatic. And I haven't gone back to watch it, and it's crazy that I haven't watched this movie since it came out, because upon watching it again, not only do I think it's one of the best films post-Endgame, maybe the best film post-Endgame, I think it's the best film of its trilogy, and potentially the best film this director has made. I am talking about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Guardians 3, the long-awaited sequel, took almost 8 years or 6 years to come out after Part 2. Obviously, James Gunn was fired from Disney and then rehired. I don't know whether some of the events of this film were supposed to take place in the initial plan, because this film obviously follows Endgame and Infinity War. But regardless of when it was supposed to come out, it's an absolute masterpiece. The first two films happened within 6 months of each other. Even though they came out in 2014 and 2017, their kind of storyline is over a 6-month period. So the Guardians are new to each other. They're still squabbling. They're still having a lot of kind of commitment issues. This film takes about 8 years after the first one. It's almost in real time. So this is a more evolved Guardians of the Galaxy. They're absolutely a family. It picks up not long after the holiday special. And basically, the action begins straight away. We're introduced to Adam Warlock, who is sent on a mission by Aisha from the Sovereign to go and attack the Guardians and gain retribution after kind of their fallout in Guardians 2. She's been hunting them for some time. Adam Warlock comes and attacks Nowhere, which is the base for the Guardians, and ends up potentially fatally wounding Rocket Raccoon. Rocket Raccoon is not in the movie for the first hour and a half of the film. He is, but not through the way we're expecting. It's not present day Rocket. We're seeing his life before the Guardians in flashbacks, and it is maybe one of the most traumatic things put on screen. Certainly maybe the most traumatic thing put on screen in the MCU. So the first half of the film is this race against time by the Guardians to try and get Rocket saved. They can't use med packs on him because it interferes with the kind of technology within his chest, because he was genetically altered. And when they want to get around it, there's a firewall which is controlled by a passkey owned by a villain called the High Evolutionary. The High Evolutionary has been trying to perfect science and create his own master race of people and his own perfect planet. So they need to hunt him down. In the first half of the film, they're going from kind of planet to planet, different space stations, trying to find a way to save Rocket. We're introduced to this new dynamic of Guardians. We've got a Peter Quill who is broken emotionally following the death of Gamora. We've got a Nebula who is much more of a captain. She still hates everyone, but she's definitely part of the family. Drax and Mantis have their ongoing banter, but Mantis seems to be increasingly frustrated by Drax. And Groot is the biggest we've ever seen him. This is a monster-sized Groot. And this is not the peaceful kind of like love and care Groot that we saw in Guardians 1. This is a killing machine. There's a moment where they do an ambush and Groot opens up all of his branches and they're all holding guns. And this can only be because he's been raised by Peter Quill. So they're on this journey. We get to meet alternate timeline Gamora. The Gamora who came back in Endgame is now with the Ravagers, but she joins the Guardians on their journey to help them get into this planet. I can't remember what it is, but they need to get like access to this passkey, as I mentioned before. As I said, we keep jumping back and forth between the kind of present timeline and Rocket's origin. We're introduced to his animal friends that he grew up with: Lila, the otter, played by Linda Cardellini; Teefs, the walrus, played by Asim Chowdhury, who's this wonderful UK comedian. If you don't know Asim Chowdhury, look up Taskmaster Asim and just enjoy the genius that is him. And Floor, the bunny, played by Michaela Hoover, who would go on to be Cat Grant in Superman, James Gunn's Superman. And they're basically just a sample of animals who are experimented on and tortured by the High Evolutionary in his quest to perfect his society. So we're kind of dealing with that, and that's very emotional. And there's very much kind of a message of anti-animal cruelty in this film. It is a tough watch. We went and saw it in theaters, and my wife has told me she'll never watch it again because of the animal cruelty scenes. I will say upon the second watch, it's not that it's easier to watch, but once you know what to expect, at least you kind of are prepared for some of the more horrific stuff. One thing I really want to point out in this film is how great Chris Pratt is. I know Chris Pratt the audience has kind of turned on him a little bit. Like in the kind of early 2010s, he was kind of this unlikely hero. People really dug him. And then over the course of the last decade, people have turned on him a little bit. His performance in this flick is second to none. There's a moment where he's trying to save Rocket, trying to bring him back to life. And it's maybe one of the most heartbreaking, most emotionally charged performances in anything in the Marvel Universe. It's brilliant. We get some wonderful growth from Nebula as well, who also shows some humanity. When Rocket, spoiler alert, is saved, there's a moment of real joy and love in her face that you're not used to seeing. It's really quite a beautiful moment. And then, of course, our final showdown, we have the Guardians fighting the High Evolutionary. And it's the first time you've seen them all really team up in a fight. They're literally taking turns beating the crap out of this guy, and it's so earned. Visually, it is stunning. It's gorgeous to look at, as all the Guardians films are. The performances are great. The stakes have never been higher. There's some excellent action films. There's a sequence on the High Evolutionary ship where they're fighting through a tunnel to No Sleep Till Brooklyn by Beastie Boys, and it might be one of the best action set pieces in any of the Marvel films. It's really great. I feel like this film gets slept on. I feel like no one's talking about it, or maybe it's just me who's not talking about it because I've only seen it once until now. But it really is just the best of James Gunn. Like from start to finish, it's the most emotionally charged, has the best stakes. It has an end. There's an absolute ending. This is the final chapter of the Guardians. There's a beautiful final sequence where the Guardians are dancing on Nowhere to the Florence and Machine song. She posted about it at the time, and it'll make you cry every single time. It sets up a new Guardians. Whether we're going to follow them or not remains to be seen. But the new Guardians are Rocket, Kraglin, Cosmo, Phyla. There's a little child called Phyla, who I think is meant to be Phyla Vell from the comics. Whether she grows up to be her or not, I'm not quite sure. And there's someone else that I'm missing. I can't remember now. I think it's Nebula and Drax are part of the team as well. And a massive Groot. Groot gets even bigger, which is really cool. And then there's also a post-credit sequence where Peter Quill returns to Earth and reunites with his grandfather, who he hasn't seen since the opening credits of the first movie, which is a really beautiful moment. And we know Star-Lord's coming back. We've teased that. It's an absolute winner for me, this one. I haven't even covered a third of it, a quarter of it. There's so much packed into this film. But it's just gorgeous and scary and wonderful. Adam Warlock, I'll talk about very quickly because he was a hotly anticipated character. A lot of people, I think, were a bit disappointed with how he was executed. This is not the Adam Warlock of the comics. This is an infantile Adam. He's new. He's basically got the temperament and mindset of a child. He is not yet like the master of the Infinity Gauntlet that we would see in the comics a lot later. Whether he returns, it sounds like Will Poulter has said he's kind of done with the role. I hope not. I really like him. He's a really good, powerful character. He's not overpowered at this stage, but I imagine as time goes on, if we do keep seeing him, we will get Captain Marvel level powers, which, to be honest, with Doomsday approaching, would not hurt to have an Adam Warlock in your belt. So we'll see. In terms of returning characters, there's not a ton of new characters introduced. The High Evolutionary is not killed. As I said in my previous video, I think he would have made an excellent replacement for Kang. Instead of killing off the Kang character or pivoting away from it, we could have just made him a variant and made him the Prime variant. I think the High Evolutionary could be a great Kang variant, but it seems like they're not doing that. But I would love to see him come back at some point. He's such a menacing villain and just pure evil. Just loves to torture and be cruel. Adam Warlock, we talked about. I hope he comes back. I don't know whether he will, but I hope he does. Great flick. Really worth your time. Go check it out. Next up is Secret Invasion.